messes out. Because my brothers and sisters, this is a lesson that Jesus gives us, his believers, his followers, his disciples, on how we can use the bank book without letting the bank book use us. You see, this is one of the aspects that Jesus allows us to learn from the pages of the Holy Writ. You can find it in the Gospel of Matthew, and you can find it in the Gospel of St. Luke. In Mark chapter 12 and in Luke chapter 21, you will find the story of this widow. This is a situation, my brothers and sisters, where it says Jesus and his disciples are at service, but are not in service. It says he sat across from the wall, watching those who had to give what they had. In other words, Jesus sat down as an analytical inspector to watch the men and the women and the classifications that came and cast their lots into the treasury. Hold on, because I always thought that the treasury belonged to the kingdom and the treasury would be given to the king. But according to the Old Testament teaching, the kingdom's treasury was not kept in the palace, but it was kept at the temple. Did y'all hear me? In other words, the king would never do as we were made to believe, where he would put his hand on the gold and the riches that were given, but he would be given, here it is, a report from the trustees on how much was given. Are y'all playing with me? And I'm wondering now, what's the expectation that we're going to have when 45 becomes 47? Do we think he can just walk down the Congress Boulevard and just walk into the U.S. Treasury and claim what the American people have given as his own? He needs to understand that he don't have the right to touch it. It ain't his. It belongs to the country. So Jesus sits in a place of an analytical spectator. Him and his disciples watch the various classes come in and give their donations, their contributions, and their tithes to the treasury. I wanted to know, did they give it in the church or outside the church? The teaching says that there was a corner on the outside of the temple. It was called the women's court. And the women's court is where all the classifications would come and give to the treasury. It would be the rich class. Y'all, it don't divide it this way. But since I know how we are divided, I'm going to go and put it this way. It's the rich class. It's the upper middle class. It's the middle class. It's the lower middle class. It's the uppity bougie class. And it's those that ain't got no class. But all of them have a responsibility to bring and give into the treasury at the kingdom of Jerusalem. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? There is no excuse about being broke, busted, and disgusted. Because if you are a member of the kingdom, you have a responsibility to bring it and give it according to the law. Jesus watches. And he sees something that catches his attention. He watches the rich give. He watches how they talk while they give. He watches the level of middle class give. He watches how they talk while they give. He watches the lower class give and listens to the conversation as they give. He never opens his mouth, Pastor Tillman, until a lonely old figure walks up to the treasury and casts her 2 mites. And then all of a sudden, the master decides to make this a teaching moment. Are y'all with me here? He says nothing when the rich give. He says nothing when the middle class gives. He says nothing when the poor give. But when a lowly, bent over figure gives, he decides to make a statement. Hold on, maybe y'all don't get it. It wasn't like Dives, the rich man who fared sumptuously every day and wore purple every day. It was not like the temple priest who would come with musical instruments, as Pastor Tillman just illustrated, and it was not them. It was not the workers from the field who would come in and pass their money into the treasury, but it was a lowly old widow.
Yes, sir.
Who Luke and Mark say she is poor and widow. It gives us no characteristics on how she was dressed, how she got there. The only description we have is that she was poor and widow. Maybe y'all don't get it because a lot of us poor and just don't know we poor.
Yes, sir.
I remember and reflected Pastor Tillman of growing up in Highland Park, Michigan, and everybody on the block and 3-4 blocks over were all in the same classification. I didn't know we were poor until I grew up because mom and dad had a certain way of hiding our classification from us because we ate every day, dressed every day, watched TV every day, was heat every day, AC every day. It was a meal on the table every day. And I went to school with people who were in the same classification every day. Didn't know I was poor until I got 18. And looked back over my life and seeing how there was a classification that had more than what we had.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I really knew it, but was in denial because as I would walk to school, Highland Park was divided by Hamilton.
All right.
Hamilton Avenue, my brothers and sisters, runs straight through Highland Park just like Woodward does. Except Woodward would separate the corporations from the residents. But Hamilton would separate the upper echelon from the lower echelon. But on one side of Hamilton was the bigger houses, and on the other side of Hamilton was the smaller houses. On one side of Hamilton, there were multiple automobiles, but on our side of Hamilton, we waited on the bus line. On one side of Hamilton, you could get folks to pick you up, but on my side of Hamilton, we rode bikes everywhere we went. We didn't know we were really poor until somebody described what poor was to us. Poor, lacking sufficient money to live at a certain standard of comfortability in the midst of your peers. Y'all ain't feeling me in here. How do you know you were poor, Johnson? Because there were times that we would have to go, telling y'all my age now, and we would get the gym shoes at the checkout line at Spartan Electric. I'm talking poor, my brothers and sisters, because back then you only had one kind of gym shoes. They were Converse. You either had low tops or high tops. You were going crazy when they came out with red and black. Do I have a witness here? You knew you were poor when you had to get out of your school clothes as soon as you walked through the door and put on your chore clothes that you were in for the rest of the day. Are y'all hearing me in here? These were the realities of the lower class and the poor. But then also, she was a widow. A widow means that her husband had died and left her with little or no support. And she would have to spend the rest of her days trying to make a way or fend for herself. Now, I know a lot of times we use these words as a way of making someone look bad. But in the Old Testament, my brothers and sisters, when you became a widow, in most cases, you had to become a harlot for your daily living. Y'all ain't saying nothing. You see, the men talked about and women would look down on Rahab because the Bible said, according to the Old Testament teaching, Rahab was a harlot, but my brothers and sisters, women didn't have the rights back then that they got on today, and they only could use what they had to get what they needed. That's why I believe when I was coming up, women felt out crazy about the song, ain't nothing going on but the rain. That's why Jeffrey Jackson broke out with another women in the Old Testament days did not have the liberty and the freedom that they got right now. I wish I could sidebar and tell y'all I am pro-life. I am let the woman have a baby that she wants. And no, I don't believe that a man who can never get pregnant ought to tell a woman who can't get pregnant that he don't have to. I'm just all over the place today because I believe, my brothers and sisters, that in this aspect, you have to look at women in a totally different way. And if you're not careful, women, sisters, you're going to find yourself in a place where every right you done march for and so will be taken away. And so hold on, because it's a rough ride on the way.
But I know a God that I serve that will keep it going.
He brings to their awareness the attention of this widow.
All right.
Because it says that they were watching and listening at the sound of the giving.
Yeah.
And whenever the rich gave, it made a certain sound. But when this widow gave, it made a different sound.
All right. Okay.
Now, for those that don't know,
All right.
quarters and 50-cent pieces and dollar pieces make a totally different sound than pennies make. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes, sir.
And believe me, that people can tell what you give by the sound it would make.
Yeah.
Because Jesus didn't get up and go look in the treasure.
I hear you, Johnson.
He listened for the sound.
Yeah.
The sound told him everything that he needed to know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I need to tell you how this proves his sovereignty, his Elohim, his Yahweh in being God.
Yes, sir.
You see, because in the women's court, it wasn't like how we just gave our tithes and offering. You see, we had 2 baskets. In the women's court, it was 13 receptacles. Which means that when the woman or the widow came, there were other sounds in comparison to the sound her offering made.
All right.
Yeah.
But because God is attuned and astute to every deed and thought, he heard, and you know he got a way of hearing, that there's a difference between the status quo and somebody who comes in with a relationship. He understands the difference between, can I go there, a worshiper giving and a praiser giving. I'm going that way for a reason. Can y'all give me just a minute to deal with that? Because I hear folks say all the time, let's praise, let's praise, let's praise. You can be a praiser without being a worshiper, but you can't be a worshiper without first being a praiser. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. You can be a praiser and just praise without being connected to the object of your praise.
Yeah.
But you cannot be a worshiper without connecting to the object of your worship. You see, you can praise simply because you don't want to look left out as the only one on the pew that ain't clapping their hands. You just clap because you want to fit in. But when you are a worshiper, it don't matter who don't clap on your road. You gonna give God what you got simply because he is who he is. Jesus saw in this woman what he did not see in everybody else. Y'all know he had the history of doing that.
Yes, sir.
Y'all remember when the woman that had the issue of blood eased up behind him and touched the hem of his garment? You remember he stopped walking and said, somebody touch me. His disciples said, Master, everybody is touching you. And Jesus said, you're absolutely right. But this touch is a different touch. Because when this touch came, the virtue went out of me. He has a way of discerning when real worshipers walk into his presence. He was not disillusioned by everything that was going on. He understood that real worship mouth moves his spirit, and he has to call it out when he sees it. My brothers and sisters, he said, let me make a teaching moment.
All right, all right.
He looks at his disciples who are busy discussing what the rich gave. Because you know that's what we do.
That's
Yeah.
what we do.
At given time,
Yeah.
Have mercy.
we look at what people give. We judge by how they dress, what they drove up in,
Have
Yeah.
mercy.
and how they act.
Yeah.
The more they got, the more stuck up they are. The more they think they got, the more bougie they are. Y'all know the ones. They come in late so you can watch them walk
Have mercy.
down the aisle. Y'all know the ones.
Yeah.
They come in and stand up with great big first lady hats on their head. And you want to tell them, please sit down. But you can't because they're going to get offended. Y'all know the attention seekers.
Yeah.
Now, these are the ones, my brothers and sisters, that I believe that the disciples had honed in on. Because these are the ones that always like to talk about what they gave and how the church and how the preacher owes them something because of what they gave. But my brothers and sisters, I guess maybe they forgot. Pastor Tillman did a marvelous job of reminding us, if it had not been for the Lord, you would have had nothing to eat. If it had not been for the Lord, you would have had nothing to drive. If it had not been for the Lord, you wouldn't have had that magnificent hat. If it wasn't for the Lord, you wouldn't have that job. If it wasn't for the Lord, you wouldn't live in that house. You owe God, because can I go there? That's why everything that has breath,
Praise the Lord.
give the Lord. He looks and brings to their awareness that again, you are looking at the outside, but God is looking at the inside. Number two, he understands that her situation is different from everybody else.
Yeah.
And she does not use that difference as a way to get out of worshiping God. You know, we are a nation full of excuses.
Yes, sir.
Somebody ought to shout amen.
Amen.
Whenever you don't want to do nothing, you give an excuse.
Yeah.
And then you get mad when people don't back your excuse. You spent a whole 15 minutes coming up with an excuse that had no loopholes in it, and you think people ought to accept it simply because you thought of it. But my brothers and sisters, excuses does not help us get by when it comes to God. This woman here said, I'm not making an excuse because of my level and my financial situation in my life. I only got 2 mics. 2 mics don't even add up to a penny. But because I know the Lord will make a way somehow. Y'all need to feel me. Pastor Tillman, can I go one day with you? Since you want to go back and pull it up and recollect from the old tanks of the old time, he may not come when you want it, but he always show up on time. You see, the woman knew that her gift did not compare to the gift of everybody else. But she was not concerned about them. She was concerned about him. Okay, y'all ain't feeling me. She wasn't concerned about what the people saw. She was only concerned about what God saw. Y'all ain't feeling me yet. Because many of us are concerned about what the people on our level see and not what the God who sits high and looks down sees. He sees from a perspective that men don't even think about. He here. The widow's mites that don't even add up to a penny come from a life of turmoil and despair. She watches how the rich people give, and yet it does not disturb them in their giving. But because she had the resolve to give God all she has, she walks up, and the Bible does not tell us if she walks linked over or she walks up proud. But she walks up and casts, one writer said, throws her poured 2 mites into the receptacle.
Yes, sir.
And she walked away knowing that she gave God the best she had.
Yes,
My brothers and sisters, I'm going to talk to somebody who always feels a little left out and down because you can't give like everybody else. I need to tell you right now, if you love the Lord and you give to God according to what God has given you, you come on and put your offering in and walk away justified because the Lord is look at your heart. He knows your situation. He knows your circumstance. He knows your dilemma. He knows your perplexity. And God will never ask you to give up without giving you more than what you give.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we used to have an old time way of giving.
All right.
The church I come out of at giving time used to say there's a tithing line and an offering line.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Y'all remember that?
Yes, sir.
You used to have more than one receptacle. You had the offering box and you had the tithing box. And those that gave their tithe would be in the center aisle, and those that gave an offering on the outer aisle.
Yeah.
But what we discovered, my brothers and sisters, is that sometimes you would alienate people because everybody didn't have tithes to give.
Yeah.
And even the old seasoned preachers, pastors, used to always say, everybody got something to give.
Yes, sir.
But what they forget is that everybody might have it, just not at the same time.
Yes, sir.
All right.
My mind goes back, just to be transparent, that yes, at New Salem, when I first got there, we had a tithing line. But I thank God for an old mother who's now resting in the bosom of Jesus by the name of Mother Laura Scales. Mother Laura Scales walked up to me one day after service and she said, Pastor, I got a question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I want to give to the Lord, but I only get paid once a month. I'm on a pension. I'm on a limited budget. I only got what my husband left me, but I want to give when we come to church every Sunday. But I feel a certain kind of way when I have to watch everybody else give and I'm left out on the giving. Y'all missing y'all place to shout. She loves the Lord. She wants to give, but she understands that people looking at her funny when she ain't getting up in the tithing line. I said, Mother Scale, if you ain't got it but once a month, get up once a month. She said, but what about the other Sunday? I said, tell you what you do. You take what you got, divide it in either 4 or 5 Sundays, and you bring a little piece of change every time you walk into the Lord's house. And if you ain't got it, you touch that basket and say, the Lord knows my heart and what I'm going through. The Lord knows what I can give and what I can't. The Lord knows, and I believe that He will supply my every need. My brothers and sisters, as I get ready to go, I want to bring that third part in my final part. It is here that her giving was moved by her faith.
Yeah.
You see, she had learned that she could have been in the getting line. Y'all better hear me now. She could have been in the I need line.
Yeah.
But instead, she decided to invoke her faith instead of her fear. Let me say that again. She decided to invoke her faith instead of her fear. I'm talking to that one person who always comes talking about what you can't do. My brothers and sisters, to invoke your faith means that you have to trust God when you can't trust nobody else. How do you know it, Johnson? Because, you know, you have these prosperity preachers that say that you got to give in order to get. You know the prosperity preacher who says, I'll give you a healing cloth if you make a financial donation. You know the financial, come on, you know the prosperity preacher who will always send you something in the mail only if you send them what they ask for on TV. You know the prosperity preacher. The one that don't never walk in the hospital and walk through the ward and lay hands with every sick person that's at the hospital. You know the prosperity preacher. You know the one that wants to drive the Bentley and will walk by you. And then you got a need. You know the prosperity preacher. Got the ring on every finger. Got chains upon his neck. Look more like a hustler than he do a preacher. You know the prosperity preacher. The one that always want to tell you that everybody living in the overflow. But everybody ain't living in the overflow. Some folks just happy to get a current every now and then. This woman
All right.
understood that if I give because of my relationship with God, I understand that God can supply my every need.
Yes, sir.
Her mind went back to 1 Kings chapter 17. Y'all remember when Elijah got sent to Zarephath?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He got sent not to the palace, but he got sent to the widow's house.
Yes, sir.
Y'all remember what happened in the widow? She had a testimony that most widows would have today. She said, I'm getting ready to go make my son and myself
Yes, sir.
one last whole cake.
Yeah.
We gonna eat it and die.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You remember what Elijah said to her? He said, well, go ahead,
Go ahead.
but make me
Make me.
one verse.
Yes, sir.
Now, I believe that there's some folk now that say the nerve of that preacher.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Maybe he did not hear with clarity and understanding what that woman just said.
Yes, sir.
Can I repeat it for y'all one more time?
One more time.
She said, I'm getting ready to go
Yes, sir.
make my son and myself a whole cake.
Yes, sir.
We gonna eat it, and then we gonna die.
Yes, sir.
And he got the audacity
All right.
to say, go ahead, but make me
Yes, sir.
one first.
Yes, sir.
Somebody would have said the nerve
And then.
of that preacher.
Yes, sir.
How you gonna take from a widow who has already made up her mind that she's going to eat and die?
And that.
Yeah.
But there was something that the preacher said that changed the whole situation. When he said, make me one first, that meant there had to be a second.
Yes, sir.
Y'all went to sleep.
Yeah.
Make me one first means that God was going to take the resources that she already had and multiply it all over again. Because in order to make him one first means that God will supply the need the next time.
Yeah.
When she went to the burial, y'all know the story. The Bible says she made him one first.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Went back to the oil and the crude
All right.
and found it was enough for her to sow.
Yeah.
But you notice the next day, my brother and sister, the conversation had changed.
Yeah.
She was no longer saying, I'm going to make a whole cake and die.
Yeah.
Because something had happened after her giving.
Yeah.
The more she gave, it looked like the more God replenished.
Yeah.
The more she made, it looked like the more God replenished. And for the widow in the text, she decided the same thing that God did yesterday. He's able to do the same thing today.
Yeah.
So I want to leave you here, my brothers and sisters, with the train of thought today that I don't know what's going to happen in January 2025. But I do know a God that has the resources.
Yeah.
Can supply our every need.
Yeah.
If he keeps on waking us up in the morning
Yeah.
and keeps on healing us from sickness
Yeah.
and keep on keeping the enemy at bay, I'm sure God can supply our every need.
Yeah.
And the witness here, and he can make death behave, and he can rob the grave from the victory. Surely God can make a way out of no way. As a matter of fact, ain't that how we know it? We know a man, a kinsman redeemer. We know a man, a bridge over troubled water. We know a man, bread for the hungry. We know a man, water for the thirsty. We know a man, a superior doctor. We know a man, an imperial lawyer. We know a man. shepherd. We know, amen, the I am of I am. We know, amen, the eternal God. We know, amen, the supplier of the need. Pastor Tillman, I heard you say, he's not just a maker, but he is a creator. Can I stand right there? And then I'm going to leave y'all alone. As a maker, you make stuff out of stuff that's already been made. But as a creator, you create stuff out of nothing that has not been made. He's a maker and a creator at the same time. Can I get a witness here? I said he's a maker and a creator at the same time. He made the sun by creating the sun. He made the sun to give out heat. He created the stars and they give out light. He created the earth to give us river state. He created the water and we go fishing. He created the birds and we eat turkey. He created the cows and we eat beef. He gave us the hogs and we eat pork. He gave us the wheat and we make bread. My God is able to supply our every need. Can you tell your neighbor he can supply my every need? When he woke me up this morning, he gave me a promise. He would walk with me and talk with me and hold me and cradle me and carry me and keep me. Won't God do it? Somebody ought to say yeah. Won't God do it? Somebody ought to say yeah. How do you know he has? Because Tom Ribbon said, if he did it before, he'll do it again. If he did it before, won't he do it again? Say yeah. Say yeah. Say yeah. Oh yeah. So keep on giving. Even in moments of leanness.
Yes, sir.
Because Jesus said, the rich give out of their abundance.
Yes, sir.
But this widow
This widow,
gave all that she
yes,
had.
he had.
Which means she was trusted in God
Yes.
to keep her even after she gave.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Why are you preaching this to us now, Johnson? Because you gotta warn people about what's on the way. And not to let fear interrupt your faith.
Yes.
But have your faith interrupt your fear. So God can keep the windows of heaven open and keep pouring out blessings that He wants to apply your every need. Can I go on and prove it one more? I'm done. The brokest church in the Bible was the church at Philippi. Are y'all feeling me in here? But Philippi kept on giving and kept on giving and kept on giving until Paul said, and my God shall, there it is, supply all of your needs according to his riches and glory through Christ Jesus.
All right.
Saints, don't lose your faith in the midst of a fearful situation. But hold on to God. He will. He's going to guide you. Can I get a witness in? The Lord will pray for you. If you're one here today, your heart up. The heart to say, I want to give you invitation to receive Jesus Christ. Put your life in His hand. Can I tell you, He never lost one. As a matter of fact, when Jesus did His prayer in John chapter 17, one of the things He said to the Father was this: all that You've given me, I haven't lost one. That means that when I was a child, when He had this song, He got the whole wide world in His hand. He got you and me in His hand. He got the little bitty baby in His hand. So put your life in the hands of a God who will never drop you, who will never leave you, but He will see you and carry you safely through. You can come by Christian experience, by letter, more importantly, candidate for baptism.
Thank you for joining today's worship experience. If you enjoyed today's service, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue to share God's Word. If you would like to sow a seed into our ministries, kindly visit New Salem Baptist Church, which is located at 2222 Illinois Street, Detroit, Michigan 48207. Thank you once again for joining us, and may the Lord truly bless you.